hope so. Ready?
Yep.
You can hear me?
Hold on.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
All right. Hello and welcome to the third question and answer session of Veteran Voices the Lives and Stories docuseries. Today's short film was called Integrity First. My name is Seth Gordon and I'm the director of the Veteran and Military Center at Wright State University. We are webcasting from the New Media Incubator in the basement of the Wright Dunbar Library. I want to take some time to recognize our supporters and those that made this series possible. First, this program is made possible in part by Ohio Humanities, a state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this short film and on this panel discussion do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities. I want to acknowledge a few people who made this possible. First, the entire series arc was presented by Navy and Air Force student veteran Jeremy Tack. Also, I want to acknowledge Erica Carter, the Veterans Voices project coordinator, for all of her support and advice in moving these films forward. Second, none of this would be possible without the support of many offices at Wright State University, including the Division of Student Success, Research and Sponsored Programs, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and the College of Liberal Arts, in particular the English Department and the Communications Department. Thank you again. I want to give special thanks to Dr. Ashley Hall and Dr. Jen Ware, who are co-direct the New Media Incubator and served as executive producers on the project and have been responsible for coordinating much of the student effort that has gone into making this project a reality. And to our panelists, we want to get started. So if you don't mind, can you share what you did in the military, how long you were in, and what your final rank was when you left?
So I'm Devin, and I was in the Army, and I was a heavy construction equipment operator as a 62 Echo, and my final rank was E4, a specialist, and I was promotable. So I was injured, and so I was actually medically discharged. And I was medically discharged in 2003. So.
Thank you.
And I was in the Army first, and I was in 92 Micah Mortuary Affairs. And when I got out of the Army, a little time later, I went into the Navy, and I was a aviation ordnanceman in the Navy. Total, with all my reserve time and everything, I ETS'd at 10 years.
Okay.
What was your rank?
E4.
E4.
Yeah. When I got out of the Army, and when I went into the Navy, I lost rank, and I just didn't do some things that I was supposed to do, and
It's okay.
lost the rank. So had to regain the rank when I went into the Navy.
So let's start just by getting your first reactions to the film. What if anything resonated with you?
Oh, the whole thing. Like it was awesome to hear other people's stories, other than just ours and what we know. You know, we don't get to be around veterans very often. You know, since I've been out, I really haven't been around other veterans, so it was really good to see other people's stories.
How about you, Devin?
Oh yeah, it was really nice, and I mean, it really brought back some memories,
Mm-hmm.
especially seeing some clips, from Obama and then from Clinton, seeing that stuff. I remember those things actually happening in real time. So, from serving back, during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then whenever it was repealed and all of that. So that really that really resonated with me, and then hearing other stories, and it makes me remember some of my buddies and some of my friends that I have that actually served, and then they were in during the repeal when Obama signed it, and then they were able to serve during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then were able to actually serve openly, and that was so it makes me really remember that as well. So
Can you talk about, there's a moment in the film that we see when Josh is holding up his military ID card that he was allowed to get finally. So I'm curious, like there's a moment for your friends that they go from having to be, I mean, like he says, they had to be closeted and then they're allowed to be out. Do you recall what
Right.
that was like for them, or?
I mean, honestly, it's like, it's, I want to say it's like Christmas because it is, you know, it's kind of like when marriage was, you
Right.
know, legalized for everyone. You know, it's like finally, you know, people that had been together for years, and I'm talking 18, 20 years,
Right.
were finally able to be able to get married. We're finally able to have the same rights as everyone else, including if you're talking to somebody that was together for 20 years,
Right.
was involved in a wreck, went to the ER, and they could not go in back, that their partner was not able to go back into the ER with them because they weren't a family member.
Right. And the spousal benefits in the military, I mean,
Same thing.
they're quite
Same thing.
generous, and then there's a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot that comes with it. I think Josh was alluding to a lot of spousal expectations and
Absolutely.
inclusion, and I think, I mean, we hear that, and suddenly you don't have to pretend that you're not that person.
Right. So, especially for Josh and Vince. So they had, you know, 2 children that were able to have the benefits. Josh was
Right.
not. Josh was not allowed to have the benefits. And once the Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, Josh was able to get the benefits.
Right.
You're talking about health care. You're talking about able to get on base. You're talking about able to, you know, do all the things that the children were able to do, that Vince was able to do. You're talking about, and especially, again, going back to even the healthcare, if something happened to Vince or the girls,
Right.
Josh even being able to go back there
And say anything.
and say,
Or have any say in the medical, you
Right.
know, direction that they want to go. You know, it's important that, you know, we were able to be out and open about those things, or else it just slips through the cracks and there's nothing that you can really do about it.
right? I mean, if Josh and the if Josh was the only one standing, and if they were all in a wreck, and it was Vince and the two girls were in a wreck, and Josh was the only one that was able to make decisions, they would have not taken his word,
Right.
because they wouldn't have been family. In all reality, they were.
So I want to, there's something behind this. I've been working with veterans for 6 years, right? And so I've learned a lot. I still don't speak, when you tell me the numbers that you were, like the 88 mics, I'm just starting
Okay.
to get it. But I want to talk about military values, right? That's something that everybody that I've ever met that served, you can rattle them off. Can you? What are the
Oh,
ones?
boy.
What are the ones that are? That you,
You know what?
boy.
Integrity is the one that I remember that sticks out to me, that has always been in my life. You know, from the time I joined the Army till now today. You know, I live my life with integrity. You know, and it's very important that you do, and because we weren't able to for so long in the military. You know, now you can be.
So you had two set. I mean, you got the Army values and the Navy values. Devin, do you remember the Army? Any of us?
I remember some of them, and I still have actually my little. I have my original
Dog tag thing.
tags that actually have my Army values on them, and of course it includes honor and integrity and that kind of thing. You know, I have 3 rules in life. You know, it's try to help others. It's, you know, do the best you can, and it's do the right thing, and that's how I live, and I get that from my father. And can I name all the Army values? Not now. It's been 20 years.
Sure.
To be quite honest with you, and I didn't realize there was going to be a test, so
Well,
And you
I
know
would
what?
have studied.
And you know, I remember them telling us in the military that if you always do the right thing, whatever you do when nobody's looking, is it still the right thing?
Right.
Right.
You know, so and that's how I've always.
Right.
You know.
It's more like honor and integrity. That's what you have, and those are the. I mean, that's really what resonates with us.
Yeah.
So
So I wanted to ask that question because I still get that answer, right? Even people that can't remember all of them, and some people can, right? I've met those people that just rattle them right off.
Oh
right?
yes,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
Usually the retirees, right? The people I think that were
That were lifers.
right, and,
Correct.
and the ones that were training other people.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
And so we heard my friend Christine is the sort of our subject matter expert in the film.
Okay.
She's the talking head, and when she talked to us, it was a very interesting conversation, and she talked about I think enjoying and appreciating so much what she got to do in the military and the chance to serve, and loved what she did, and then had to hold that with, you know, talking about if somebody got hurt or somebody broke into her apartment, she had to go home and help her friend out, right? And so what I'm curious about is there's a set of values, and we hear Vince really talking about this contradiction, right? You guys embody still, essentially, I mean, what you said, I've heard somebody say 2 days ago, this is how the Army values are, what do I do when nobody's looking? Like, I hear that all the time. And there's this contradiction where that's still ingrained in you, and you did this thing and you served an organization that was telling you you couldn't be who you were. Why? I mean, there's people that don't understand why you would want to go into a place effectively at that time that didn't really want you there. So why did you do that? And what does that still mean? It's a big question.
Well, you know, I did it for my country. You know, all my family members, you know, I had so many of them that were in the military. So it was another thing that, you know, follow in the footsteps of Dad, who followed in the footsteps of Dad, who followed in the footsteps of Dad. You know, so, you know, that was my main reasons for joining, you know, and I didn't think about don't ask, don't tell whenever I signed the papers. It wasn't something that, you know, I mean, I wore my colors to the MEPS station when I joined the Navy, and nobody really said anything at that point. Maybe nobody caught it, you know, but, you know, I made it through somehow. So, and then I didn't really think about it too much after that until I was ready to start dating somebody. And then I was like, oh, yeah, we got to be careful about this, you know.
You come from a long line of military people. Was were your family really invested in you joining?
No, but they were really happy about it.
Right.
You know, everybody was like gung-ho about it, me joining, you know. I was female back then, so there wasn't any other females in our family that was in the military.
Okay.
So that was a really cool thing, you know, for my family. But then, you know, later.
Suddenly you're in this place where, so you want to serve because that's something that is ingrained in you. That's what I'm hearing. Is that accurate?
Yes, and you know, and it was I wanted to do my part for the greater good. You know, that was important for me. You know, it was in my decisions. You know, so.
And it sounds like that still is. Is that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I always wanted to be in the Army, like from when I was a kid. I mean, I always wanted to be in the military, and I mean, I played Army when I was a kid, you know, and I mean I have a great uncle that was in the Patton's Army, so I mean there's also that. So I mean, and when you're talking about things and you're talking about, I guess it was more like a sacrifice that I was willing to sacrifice for the greater good.
So you felt that
Personally.
that you could suppress this part of yourself.
Correct.
Because it was important for you to do this service.
Correct, because it was my sacrifice for the greater good. And in fact, a friend of mine that was gay, he was a gay man, and of course I was a lesbian at the time. We actually got married, and he had a surgery, and we lived off base, so we could live this life, right? And we were roommates, but I actually had a sergeant that actually came and checked on us because they had heard that I was gay, and it was during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so he actually came to the house just to check to see if he had actually had surgery and to see how everything was.
Are you talking about like a regular surgery, not a
Correct.
like hurt themselves, not
Yeah,
a
he
gender
had-
reassignment surgery?
No, correct.
Right.
He had just had surgery, and my sergeant from base came just to check on him to see how he was doing.
Right.
And my husband was not, obviously at the time was not, had nothing to do with our unit, or was
Right.
not, he had gotten out of the Air Force.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He wasn't even in the military at the time, so. But yeah, he was a gay man and I was a lesbian, and we got together so we could live off base. And yeah, I remember that now. Sergeant Stidham.
Do you think I mean, we sort of talked about this, but what we see in the film, we see that very interesting interaction where the Christian man gets up and he's saying, "What about me?"
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
This is a complicated question, I think, even in my head. When Don't Ask, Don't Tell was happening, it comes off as really trying to protect. It wasn't really about you at all, about your lifestyles. It was about people who would be considered cisgender, right? Like, it was about
Correct.
protecting them from you. I mean, is that the right way to say it, do you think?
That is not the right way to say it.
Okay, so correct me.
So cisgender is the same,
Right.
and meaning that you're assigned, like you were assigned male at birth,
Right,
and
right.
you identify as male. And when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was in place, there was no transgender people in
Right.
the military. So it would have been all cisgender people
Right.
at that time. So I think that it was not to protect the homosexuals or the people that were gay or lesbian, and I think that it was more to just say it's okay if you are, but we're not going to ask and we're not going to tell, and you don't have to tell. But at the same time, they did go on witch hunts. So I don't think
Which
it was
was
to
supposed to,
protect
don't
them.
ask, don't tell, was supposed to stop that. And
Correct. I don't think it was to protect them, because I think it was more along the lines of it was more like a game almost, if that made sense.
A little bit.
Yes.
So
Does that answer your question, or is it?
no, it's okay. I mean, it's
Okay.
From my perspective, what I'm seeing is that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is really like where I think Christine says this a little bit. Like, we know that the culture is changing around the 90s.
Yes.
We have gay men and women serving. We also are starting to be engaged in these
Yes.
multiple conflicts, and we can't draw down the service,
Correct.
right? So we have to keep people in. How are we going to do that?
Correct.
Right.
It was like, let's put blinders on.
Right.
We know that they're there,
Right.
but we're going to put blinders on, and it just depended on what unit you were in, whether you had the witch
And
hunts or not.
That's what I've heard.
Right,
That's
because there-
really what had happened.
there was a time when I was in the Navy that nobody cared. There was a time when I was in the Army that nobody cared, but the rest of the time they cared. You know what I mean? So it all depended on who was in charge and their views and their feelings about the whole situation. Whether they agreed with or disagreed with Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
And the same thing goes on for right now with the whole transgender ban.
Right.
I'd like
To be quite honest with
Yeah.
you,
It's another it's a Don't Ask, Don't Tell on transgender people.
absolutely,
Yeah.
because right now everything's in court, but to be quite honest with you, Right Pat is still doing transgender surgeries right now, and they have one scheduled as far out as April.
But you're saying that for trans people in the military, they're still experiencing what you were experiencing
Yes.
under Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
No.
No, they're
Right
not.
now they're openly
Right now they're
serving,
okay.
and even though the things are happening in
Right.
Washington,
Right.
and they're saying that they can't no longer serve, trans people can't come into the military, but the people that are serving right
Serving,
now
okay.
are still able to get surgeries. Right Pat is still doing surgeries in the plastics. Plastic surgeon is still performing surgeries on trans patients.
So if I'm in, I get all the benefits still.
You're okay right now,
right now,
depending on what unit you're in.
right?
If your unit is okay with it, we're good.
So
If this unit's not okay with it, if the head honcho is not okay with it, you're not okay.
let's do a little bit of military
You see what I'm
basics
saying?
for those people that might not be tracking. Right?
Okay.
Right. Every 3 years, you guys are reassigned approximately, right? Right.
2 to 3, yes.
2 to 3, and sometimes longer, but
Yes.
roughly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in a unit, and you walk in, you get assigned to that unit, and then the person in charge is totally fine. They're comfortable with what's going on. There's
Right.
an understanding. Everything's fine. Eventually, they move out, and if you're not in sync with them, somebody comes in, and then
Yes.
the dice are rolled, and then if it's somebody that's not comfortable, the whole situation changes.
The whole
Everything
situation
changes,
changes,
you know.
and you could be put out,
Yep.
or
Or
you
you could be pushed back into the closet.
something. These are hard questions.
I mean, I remember doing a little research on this once, and there was, I don't remember the book. I think it was called, the book is actually called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and somebody tried to do a history of gay people in the military, and when you read about it, going back to World War II, I mean, people, we've been doing this project about telling veteran stories for a long time, and the same reasons you join, you read about people in World War II and in Vietnam who they realize are serving with incredible distinction. That all of the heroes that we look up to that served in those wars, and they also happen to have this sexual orientation. And the result of that study, even as far back I think as like in the early 1900s, was they're serving with distinction, there's no issue, right? That's any rational person's assessment of this situation is all anybody really wants to do when they join is serve their country.
Correct.
That's the thing that overrides everything else.
Right.
And it's always strange to have people keep reassessing that and trying to make it like it's not possible when it's been happening for over 100 years now, really.
I mean, it was still a crime in this country to be in the LGBT community up until 2003.
Right.
2003. I came out as gay to a woman 2 days ago. 2 days ago. And she was shocked. She doesn't want me to tell the rest of her family. She wants me to keep it quiet.
So you shared your
Oh no, I did not go trans. I held the trans back, and I only shared that I was gay, that I was married to a man. And I thought she was going to fall out of her chair. And so I didn't even go any further. I just stopped there. And that was 2 days ago. We're in 2019.
right.
So
So Vince is sort of talking a little bit in the film about there being a cultural shift. How has there been one, and is it still evolving?
It's still evolving. It's always evolving. More people have come out of the closet, especially like youth. But there's a lot of people, because of the administration, that has quietly slipped back into a somewhat of a closet because of all the violence that has
Right.
skyrocketed since this administration came in. Unfortunately, there was already a lot of violence towards the LGBT community, especially the transgender community, for many, many, many years. So it's.
So if we're talking about the LGBT community, it seems to me like the people struggling the most are the people in the trans community at this point.
Right, especially trans women of color. They are the most marginalized, and they're the ones that are being brutally beaten and killed,
murdered.
and murdered just for being their authentic selves,
And is
every
that-
year.
Is that still true in the military? Is it better if you're a gay man in the military? Is it easier now than it was? Do you
I don't know.
To be quite honest with you, it's definitely easier to be either a lesbian or a gay man in the military.
Right.
I think that it's always, and to be quite honest with you, it's either easier to be bi or a lesbian than it is to be a gay man
Right.
or to be a trans person. Why that is, I don't know. I think that it has to do with some fantasies of cis males,
Right.
and that's just my personal belief. But
And it is a pretty hyper-masculine environment, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's probably why they don't look down upon the lesbians as much, especially the ones that present as butch lesbians, or more masculine, hyper masculine lesbians.
But I think the community will always be marginalized, in my opinion. I think it's getting better, and I think the new generation is coming in, and it's shifting, and there's a lot more gender fluidity.
Yeah, there's
throughout,
such a
and
spectrum now on gender identity and sexual orientation, all the different things that people have decided who they are and are living themselves.
And they just want to be individuals now.
Yeah,
I mean,
the spectrum
awesome.
is really long and really amazing.
So one of the questions we ask at the end of some of the more formal Veteran Voices oral history interviews we do is, what advice would you give to people that want to join the military? And I'm wondering, what advice would you give to a young gay, trans, or anybody in the LGBT community about joining the military now?
I think it's just like what we said in the film is, keep fighting. If you're gay, lesbian, or bisexual, you'll have no problems getting into the military at all. And by all means, if you want to serve, because there's absolutely a need to serve your country. And if you want to do it, by all means. And for the trans community, I think that there will also be a time. It was already opened up. I think the door has half closed, but I think that door will swing back open again. So don't give up hope and keep fighting.
Yeah, keep fighting.
Because it will
just
come back.
Just keep standing up for yourself. If things always change in this country, that's the one thing about the United States is there's always change. Every 4 to 8 years, something completely drastic happens. So we just have to keep fighting and fighting for the ones that can't fight.
So is there any other thoughts or anything additional you'd want to share about the film or this topic with people that I might have missed?
I think it's a great topic. I think you guys covered a lot.
Yeah, you covered a lot in a very short period of time, and it was very well put together. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm very grateful for you both.
I'm excited to see you on the
We are honored that you even asked us to do it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see November 21st when I can see the rest of the rest of the film. So.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
So, can we end this part, the broadcast part?